Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Debra Eckerling, creator of the Deb Method for Goal Setting Simplified. Yes, Deb, let's forget our tagline. Great way to start a show. Anyway, I'm also the author of your goal guide and 52 secrets for goal setting and goal getting. You can't reach your goals on your own, you need your people. So every week I bring in some of my people to chime into the topic. And today we have Marcia Macomber. I've had you on several times. I don't know how I found your name today, but Marcia Macomber,
like cucumber,
which is like what you're supposed to be eating in the hot weather. That's really easy. Marcia Macomber, who is a web designer, graphic artist, and radio host. And we also have Melanie Richards, who I met through the lovely world of Bryn Tillman and Social Sales Link, who is the queen of all things BVisibling. And she hosts a live show as well. And before we jump in, before I let them introduce themselves, today we're talking about business goals. Yeah, we're doing really great achieving those goals of being authentic. We are like really on the mark there. And you might be watching us as GoalChat Live. You might be watching the replay or listening to us as GoalChat on the Marketing Podcast Network. But no matter how you found us, we are so glad you're here to dive into this really important topic. And we're talking about business goals, but business goals don't exist without personal goals. So spoiler alert, we're going to talk about those as well. Anyway, all you know is that Marcia and Melanie are awesome, and I would love for them to tell you a little bit more than that. So let's let you guys introduce yourselves better. So Marcia, let's start with you. Who are you and why are you here?
I am Marcia Macomber. I am creator-in-chief at Cornucopia Creations. That is my own firm, my creative firm. Little secret that Deb probably doesn't know, I originally came up with the business name when I thought I was going to be going into housewares and decor, but then I pivoted and went into graphic design and marketing instead, and I decided to keep the name because, well, it was alliterative and who would know? Anyway, too much detail and background on that. But what I do is I really help out business owners who are very stuck with their marketing. They might either need a brand new website or they might need a redo. And they might actually be incredibly apprehensive about the process and going through it because they know it's a really big project. So I am there to hold their hands, guide them to go through it, and make sure they're really thrilled with what that they get as the end product for what they do. So that's the short story.
Well, what I particularly love is you've been on the show before, and that's the first time I heard that story. And I think that was a really good reasoning. I mean, you love the name. Why wouldn't you just keep it no matter what company, right?
Right. Well, you could get plenty of other marketing people who would say, you should have used your own name. You should have used something shorter, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I've studied that more times than I can count. And I was just like, nah, I'm keeping it because it's easier.
Works for me.
Exactly.
Melanie, welcome. So happy to have you here.
How are you doing? And what a fabulous story about how you came up with your business name. What you're going to love is, as we're introducing ourselves, Debra will laugh because I'm rebranding. I just rebranded as BVisible Solutions. So BVisible with Mel is to remind myself to take some of the advice or inspiration and love that we love to share with clients to help encourage them to bring their introverts, their extroverts, their special talents to come out and play with others. And I needed to be reminded. So BVisible with Mel is kind of my reminder to let this girl come out and play. And I loved that we started there, and I really love your story about that. And figured I'd start sharing something that Debra also doesn't know in this process of us getting to know each other. I'm certified in trust, And I'm an event girl. That's what helped push the operations geeky girl out into helping others let out their best kept secret, what differentiates themselves in crowded markets. And I'm
And it,
delighted to join you today for
well,
Goal
this
Chat.
well, this is going to be so much fun. And what I'm noticing is that the live stream on Facebook is not going, but I because I thought Mercury was direct, but we are live on YouTube and LinkedIn, and I will definitely be posting this on LinkedIn. So if you found us, if you're watching, and even if it's the replay, what business goals are you focusing on right now? Because I feel like the timing right now, it's almost the end of August. How the heck did that happen? But we still have a good 4 months left. As I count on my fingers, September, October, November, December, to get things done this year. I like to start the new year in December. So I actually do start the year shows at the beginning of December, and then I start again in January for the traditionalists. But I also think of, we've got 4 seasons. It's December, it's January, it's the summer and the fall. And I feel like right now, everybody is like, okay, what can I get done in the last 4 months of the year? Which is why I think it's particularly important to time this right now. So what is your business priority right now? And then we're going to go into what are the different things that you all use for goal setting and goal getting your business goals in service of helping others. So Melanie, we're going to start backwards. What is your focus right now? How are you using this time, that last part of the year?
So I always use this last part of the year is always a planning season for me. And September is an elastic month. I don't know a better way to think of it. Kind of people think of it as, how am I preparing for the fourth quarter? How am I preparing to, generate some impact and momentum for the new year? And that's kind of the lane or the highway that I kind of stay in. I let September, that stretch of comfort zones, and we have to do it as business owners. There's some things that have been on the wish list all year and haven't necessarily tried them yet. So as Marcia would say, that website, the name exists for BVisibleSolutions.com, and I'm in the process of generating content. So I'm doing all that stretching stuff. The how many versions of bios can you work on? How many different ways can you share a story with an audience without losing them and boring them? And I think that's where I start. The teacher's kid has to start by narrowing down the buckets of information, the platters that we all have going, and getting it down. So always pad and paper nearby.
Oh, of course, because if you don't write it down, if you don't write it down, you forget it. But if you do write it down, you remember it. Marcia, what does September in this last part of the year, what does that signify for you?
Well, I'm up here in wine country, so for the area as a whole, this is it's actually known as OND. It starts actually in August, October, November, December. But what it is up here for the wine industry, it's the race to meet your year-end sales goals, because the wine industry makes its most money and most sales between Thanksgiving and Christmas, because people are celebrating, going out to parties, doing all that event stuff that Melanie was talking about from before. I am on a similar track to the wine industry, but not necessarily doing exactly what they do. I go through the summer and I end up often feeling like, geez, the year has gone this far and I haven't gotten this, and this done. And I tend to beat myself up a little bit. And this summer, I opted to sign up for a training course which was going to give me a little bit of a kick in the patootie there, and accountability to get things done. And so I actually just tackled all of my year-end goals for what I wanted to do. And they all have to do with what I want to get accomplished in September and October and November. And I got to tell you, December, mine's a little opposite from yours, Deb, in that I find my experience with a lot of my clients is they're racing to finish the year in the same way the wine industry is. They want to make as most sales as possible. So they're implementing all their marketing strategies and changes, and they got to have those all done by Thanksgiving. Therefore, the month of December is, they have got to be going, in fifth gear. They're not having to use a lot of energy because they've been gearing up all this time. They're coasting at a very fast rate. Do they want to talk to me? No, not unless they're not meeting their goals and they want me to help them say, okay, January 1, let's get going and start working on your new marketing engine for the next year. So there's a bit of a delayed gap there. But for me and my business, I'm really looking at the last chapter of the 2025 and going, okay, I really want to get these things done. And as I think, Deb, you talk about in 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting, a big part of this is your why. You're not just because you write it down on paper, made note, oh, I want to make, $50,000 in the next 2 weeks, does not necessarily make it happen. Even if you write it down. But if you've got a motivator behind you going, because I want to go on that, Rhone cruise in France.
Oh, we're about onto the reward system then.
Yes.
Yes.
I know.
Absolutely.
I over answered that whole thing.
It's okay. It's okay. We're having GoalChat today. We were supposed to have a third guest, and I hope he's okay. Forgot about us, but that's fine. We have a party without him. Sorry, Daryl. Anyway, but that is the first chapter in 52 Secrets is focus. And one thing I say all the time is you can't get what you want unless you know what that is. So, and I love how Melanie is like, okay, I'm reintroducing myself to me, but also my clients. If you don't gift yourself the time to figure out your next version of yourself, then nothing is going to succeed. You're going to be running, chasing your tail the whole time. So for you both, is the process of rebranding the same, or is it different than when you start a new project? Melanie?
It is so different.
Okay, tell me.
I think part of what happens is just like you say, your why can change. And what I love, like if you look at Deborah's the Deb method, Deb starts with determine your mission. And there's different tweaks to our mission. I'm not a shiny object girl, shiny object syndrome. But on the other hand, I learned when something pauses me in the process of pursuing a goal, one of my coaches taught me it's not big enough. She says it's not big enough, and you're gonna lose a little bit of the pep in your step in the process of pursuing it. And that I think is a really great description for rebranding, because someone says do it this way, someone says try it my way. Everybody's got a system, everyone has a suggestion, and everyone has an opinion, but I love it because Deborah says explore your options. So that's what September's about. A lot of my clients aren't in explore your option season unless they're having a holiday event. They're in determining their mission. They're already in 2026 or planning for 2027 because that's the links to the strategy. So I find for myself, keep taking a great page from them and follow that example. There's a new light. Ooh, what in the world? There's a twinkle. There's a new idea. And if nothing else, I journal it so that you can re-explore it later and keep it for a rainy day. And sometimes that ends up being the first thing you're sharing with your next client.
Because you never know. I am such a fan of virtual and actual notebooks. And I think it's always good to have just a blank Google Doc for those ideas that come up, because you never know. Or when I'm working with book clients and they can't figure out, am I working on this or am I working on that? I say, keep a document for the ideas you have for the next one, or for all the ideas you have for future books. Find what you're focusing on. But also, if you've got an idea, write it down, and that way it can stay there, and you could go back to focusing on your priority. And I love what you just said about shiny objects not being big enough, because that's been my latest mantra, is to think bigger, because it goes into what our friend Bryn Tillman says, is if you're not sharing what you do with other people, sometimes it's malpractice because they need what you have to offer. I know I'm mangling the quote, but that's the essence of it. Is if you know something, if you have a solution, a part of your job is sharing what you do with other people. And I know for me, who works with clients, whether it's on their goals or on their book proposals, I'm great at nudging other people forward. But if I don't tell people what I do, how are the people that I need to nudge are going to know that I am there to nudge them in a very strategic way? Marcia, you are smiling. Thoughts on this whole shiny versus less shiny but progressive objects?
Well, I've just been immersed in this the past couple of weeks. I had COVID before that, and I was totally wiped out. So it was nice to like come back and feel like the focus came back, and I could, clarify my vision and all those elements. And Melanie said some key things that really resonated with me, that I was reminded of, which is, if you make a goal that you're like, well, okay, I'll put this down because I can probably do this. Every coach and Debra is going to say, not big enough. Got to have real stretch goals.
Actually, no, I say to put down all of the goals, because you want your wins as well. You want your wins on the little goals. You need the variety.
Right.
You need the buffet.
There's levels of goals too. There's big pie in the sky, and then there are the smaller ones that help you get to that as well. But when I think about the whole thing about rebranding and what you do now, I usually end up, not rebranding by name or what I do, but I end up redoing my logo and my website and its appearance about every 2.5, 3 years. So it's the natural evolution of the business world, that things just get kind of stale, and you got to jump in there. But another thing that I really learned recently, in terms of making your goals and getting them out of the fog of your head, is try anything. And try anything that helps you get there, and do not put a judgment. Don't have a little voice in your head. Don't put any judgment on what comes to mind right out of your head. You need to, just like brainstorming, where you get a bunch of people around a conference room and a whiteboard or paper flipboards. Just let it flow and get it all going, because it literally gets the juices going in your brain. And so I've struggled, I don't know about anybody else, but I've struggled with enumerating specific goals. And that could be a large goal, but it could be a small one too. And so by saying, stop judging yourself, just throw it out there. It could be walking around my office, talking out loud, talking to yourself. And you could also use your phone to take audio notes, if you don't have paper in front of you. But that really goes a long way towards getting you going so that finally you're going and it's kind of you're up to speed and you're really cruising along, because you need to get in the flow of working those goals. And if you're not in the flow, just like the flow of your work, you test everything else till you get there.
This is exactly why I love brainstorming. And there's a lot of it in your goal guide, which goes through the DEB method because it's very brainstormy based. But this is the thing with brainstorming. If you're making a list of your goals, and we're talking like the kitchen sink list of all of them, the first 5 or 10 are going to be easy. Next, you get to 15, 20, you can do it. But when you make a conscious choice to brainstorm a list of 50 of anything, then you really have to dig deep into what are and they could be anything but this is for any sort of brainstorm, any project, any outcome, or even rebranding ideas. The more you dump out of your head, the more toys you have to play with in mixing and matching and figuring out your next steps.
Absolutely.
I see Melanie is smiling.
I am, because I think that's where the elastic part of September came from me. Every now and then as an entrepreneur, and Marcia said it perfectly, from reimagining what the look and feel of a website is. All of our stuff runs in cycles. It's just that beautiful butterfly on Debra's wall. Sometimes you feel like flying, rest of the time you're feeling like you're a little bit in a cocoon. And I think that encouragement, I'm thankful, because the mental fitness, the positive intelligence world, they led me towards getting certified in trust, which is an emotional intelligence thing. Positive intelligence, people are always talking, and I'm always sharing it with clients. We've got an inner narrative that's happening. Our judge can kill some of those goals before the pen touches the paper, which is why I love your audio recorder guide, because sometimes when we say it out loud, we'll say it and then we'll listen and have an aha moment because of that. But I think because of that, we need to create containers for ourselves, whether they're groups of people who they tell us like it is. They help us focus on the clarity part. They help us and it's taken me a while to learn, simplify to amplify, and it can be really challenging, because a lot of people, if we're not, Debra will laugh. When we met in Bryn Tillman's community and Debra mentioned goals, Debra will laugh. There's a recording, Marcia, of me doing this. I moved back. She thought she couldn't see me before, because occasionally you have a word which is like, uh-oh, this is beyond strategy. And then I look at Debra's profile and she's got the Deb method. I said, okay, I'm a systems girl. I'm a structure girl. But the thing is, we think of all the moving parts to it. And I think that's what kind of can be complicated. And I love that when you mentioned it, you mentioned the business side and then the personal side, because sometimes they need to be aligned. I had to learn it on a self-trust journey. There's some big dreams that I just would never say out loud. And I'm delighted because we're here with our cousins. He's the one a couple of years ago. He's like, you did a live stream. You need to record more of those. I had more hidden than you could ever see at that point. Back then, there were 40 hidden videos on YouTube, because we're creating the content. Maybe it's a private training for someone, is a specific coaching program to take someone through separate steps. But I love that your goal setting and your goal getting are like interlocked. It reminds me of like Jacob's ladder. I love puzzles and games. And if you can't pull out a piece, sometimes we don't know what next actionable step to take. So I love that you're encouraging us and encouraging your listeners to really just dive deep.
Well, you need to. And part of it is, and I talk about this, and at the end, I will ask you all to gift a goal to the audience, things that they could do to work on their business goals. But I think of goal time as gifting time. We schedule appointments with other people all the time, and we would never dream of canceling on someone else. Why would we dream of canceling on ourselves? But usually we out prioritize. So that's a big thing is we put our appointments with ourselves in stone, but also look at the personal goals and the professional goals, because they're not sometimes interwoven, they're always interwoven. Because if your personal life is going well, it's going to affect your business, and same thing with the business, and the reverse is true. I remember years ago, a friend of mine, I'm in Los Angeles, he lived in the Valley, he had like an hour commute, he didn't like his roommate, and one day I said to him, why don't you move? And it never occurred to him. And he ended up moving to a shoebox in Santa Monica, as we described it, more like a 20-minute commute, no roommate, but it was a studio. But it was like, it made such a difference in all the other parts of his life, but it never occurred to him that such a small change would make such a big impact, which, again, it happens on the personal and the business side. The little tweaks that impact our lives in one area are going to hopefully benefit our lives in the other areas. Do either of you have stories of one thing that you changed, made this monumental, or even a little bit of a difference, but it was a difference to you?
That's a tough one for me to think of. There's, you're the only one reading it. You're the only one observing what the change is. But I would say the things that are little that have big outcomes often are mindset shifts. A small mindset shift can have waves of repercussion in positive ways on the outside. So if
are you vamping to figure out what your answer is, Marcia? I mean, if you are, that's fine. But you're right. Sometimes it's something little that you approach it a little bit differently, right? I'm a huge fan, and I've been on your radio show enough, I must have mentioned this at least a dozen times, is I'm a huge fan of the 2-minute dance break. I mentioned it a dozen times. I've probably been on your show half that amount. But a 2-minute dance break is something you could do almost any time to up your energy. And it could be because you're tired, or you're about to go on air, or you're about to have a difficult conversation. You can do a 2-minute dance break, and it's going to impact your attitude greatly. Did I give you enough time to come up with an example? Melanie, do you want to
one that I can enumerate so specifically. It's like you said, it's like small things. It's like, taking the dog out for a walk just breaks my thought patterns, and suddenly I've got a whole campaign for a client simply by getting out there and seeing the sun, for 20 minutes, that I was stuck on. It can be something that small.
Okay, that actually counts as an answer.
Okay.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad.
Melanie, what do you think?
So for myself, and it took a while, and the journals helped, I had to change the view. I have to change the lens with which I'm looking at something. Because I think sometimes we look at things, I'm like, a good example is I have a lot of HR clients and was in operations for a while. And people always used to say, focus on feedback. And the switch for me was changing the lens. I focus on feed forward. What's a goal you have that I can help you achieve? What is a goal that you're working on setting that I can help you with a step? It changed the perspective, and it changed the lens, and it really changed, I think, how I show up as a person and as a coach. So much so that our family this week is probably a little worried, because until today, they'll probably say I was on radio silence. So I think sometimes it's the same thing like when you're a kid, and I was a teacher's kid. When you had the opportunity, change your seat in the room. Change the way you're looking at something. And in the beginning, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of changes, but somebody somewhere that you know, that you love, that you care about, that you trust is going to let you know, that was a step in a different direction. And I think it can give us the courage to take them. And yep, I hang out with Martin Stark, the courage champion, all the time. But it can give you the courage to take it. And like Deborah was saying, also learned from music, and I have a lot of musical titles now on our live streams because it fuels your energy. So I think changing your lens, changing your perspective, or changing your seat, one of the three if you can, even if
Or
it's just for 10 minutes.
or taking the dog for a walk, or dancing at your desk, whatever. I think that, and this is another really good exercise, write down, and we'll just make it 20. Write down 20 things that you could do that you can do to shake up your day. Or this is the other way I usually frame it, is keep a list of things you could do in 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, a half a day. And then when you have 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, a half a day, you don't even have to think about what you can do. You've got your list that you can either choose one or close your eyes and point to, and that's the one that you do. So I think the point we're making is business goals aren't about the business. They're about self-awareness and figuring out what you need to do to be your best self so you can move forward in the most productive way.
Yeah.
And I love what Marcia said, especially about walking her dog, that in the process of taking a break from something, that your presence settles. You let your brain settle. You're letting your cells settle a little bit. Whether it's too many ideas, just need a break. Can't look at this anymore. Need to walk away. To give yourself that permission to do so. To just change where you are and change your focus.
Yeah.
I feel like very often it's so easy to get stuck in a rut. Or to have conversations with yourself, or and even just second guess. And this is to a point that you brought up earlier. You need your trusted people, but you should also be very careful about who those people are. One thing I talk about in your goal guide is no backseat drivers. No, before you ask for feedback on anything, know it well enough so you could be objective of whatever feedback you get. So people do not sway you away from the right direction or sway you into the wrong one. So that is my basic rule for dealing with people. What do you guys have?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. And it's really tough for some people, because I know with some of my clients, they're a little at sea and they're trying to get their footing. And, some of them are using AI, to bounce ideas off. How do I do this? Should I do that? I am a big fan of AI used well, but it takes practice. Just like one of my business partners said a long time ago, garbage in, garbage out. If you are, and this applies to people too. So, and what I mean by that is, if you are asking a client or a business associate or ChatGPT, if you're asking it the wrong questions, you won't get the answer you're hoping for or expecting. And so you have to get better. We all have to get better at ensuring that we are asking the right things to the right people or entities in order to get the most accurate answer for what your goal is at the moment. Deb's busy typing away there. She's doing one of her zinging things.
No, I'm just taking notes for the recap. But I think garbage in, garbage out, it does apply to what I said before with the feedback. Know who you trust. And it doesn't mean that you can't invite more people into your circle. It just means that you start. That's like your starting point, right?
Right. If you have people that you really, really trust, you don't have to, go back to the beginning of the story to explain ahead of asking your question. If you've got trusted friends and associates to share your ideas with, they likely already have all your background already, and you can jump in right where you left off last time, saying, remember what I was telling you about this problem I was having with goals and not being able to achieve them within the time I wanted? Well, guess what? Here's what I learned and what I'm planning to do. That's the advantage of having the right people to talk to.
Yes. And the disadvantage of having the wrong people is you get, oh, guess what? I'm rebranding myself. Why? I'm going in a new direction. What are you doing that for? I mean, the opposite of, right? I don't think you have anybody who said that to you, Melanie, because you are careful of whom you share. Am I accurate?
It took a while. So in business, I was the gift and the engagement lady way back when, and I spent most of my years in operations supporting salespeople and supporting buyers. And I find the caution came in because I wasn't always in spaces where I felt welcome. I was the note taker. I was there to come up with the strategy or the plan. My boss would let me sit in on a meeting, and I loved meeting diverse clients, like helping Pfizer with their 150th anniversary program. It was an amazing thing, brought a lot of skills together. At the same time, I learned until that first meeting with the client, I had no idea why my boss had invited me there. So I work for someone who distrust was a natural part. And I think I can't even say it's part of being a New York City girl or a girl from the Bronx. But I think I was the younger kid in most of the classrooms and in many of the environments. And it wasn't that I didn't trust people. People don't always invite us to participate. You may be as the note taker, you may be the introvert. Maybe we're checking out the room that we're in. We're making sure we're psychologically safe, we're physically safe. It's the place that we want to be. The energy's right, the invitation is right. And if those things aren't aligned, it was something maybe telling me you're in a spot now where it's not part of your trust sequence. This is part of a distrust sequence. Something is telling you there's something here that's not quite right. The cool part was I learned after the meeting with Pfizer, the woman I met that day called me the next day. She says, you have amazing ideas. Make sure you get a bonus from him tied to this program. I loved it. Fantastic advice from a wonderful woman. I tell you, I look for her on LinkedIn all the time because I really owed her a thank you because she helped me
did you?
I did. She suggested make it contingent on the success of the project. She said she understood from his overview how much work I had ahead of me. She says he's going to have you as the liaison with the buyers, with the factories, with the fulfillment house, with the people who are shipping, with the people who are billing, with the people who haven't paid. She says he mentioned at least 8 or 9 different areas. And I really appreciated her because she really helped me start exploring working with coaches. The part that this is somebody I had never met. Implicitly, sometimes we don't necessarily always feel trust implicitly. She took the time the next day to call me and said, hey, I want to make sure that you're taking care of you. And I so appreciated it. And I think it's a choice whether someone extends a hand, whether someone opens the door, whether someone refers you to the chapter in the book or the place in the table of contents where the answer you're looking for is. People don't always point us there. Some people lead us in the opposite direction. And I'll I'll admit I had a bunch of them as guides, and I want to thank them all now because I'm certified in trust. So I've got tools to help other people navigate this, thanks to Yvette Bethel of Organizational Soul. But, trust now is a language I can speak from learning self-trust. If we don't have it, like Deb says, if we don't have the method, or if Marcia says, if you're not looking at your designs, I feel better. 2.5 years, okay, I'm a little bit behind it, but I've been in the process of planning this business for 2 years. I'm like, okay, I'll bring that. Okay, do this within the next 6 months and don't feel like it's a wasted goal. But I love that, Deborah. It's not resistance either necessarily. I welcome conversation. I welcome new ideas. I find sometimes people aren't in a listening mode, and that's the part behind trust. If we don't feel like we're being heard, we're not being seen. Some people would say they feel that they need to be felt. But when Yvette Bethel told me trust was an emotion, she really fully got my attention. I'm so grateful to see a presentation at a conference that just led to a great journey.
And I think that also goes to the point where when you get help, you never know where it's going to come from. And it's usually not from people you have helped. I feel especially in business, and there's a chapter on leadership and teamwork in 52 Secrets as well. What had happened is I interviewed these 60 people, and then I figured out the chapters, and there were people talking about the whole working together as a group. And, one of them is, project the best outcome. Another is, sustainability. Another was communication, all of these different factors. But you need to have the right corporate culture that's going to have people feel safe, feel like they're seen, so they can build something better together.
Culture.
Yes. And whether you are in a business of one or you work with other people, the culture, I think, is a huge part. What you create, you are your culture. It's almost like when I'm coaching people on their book proposals, congratulations, you are now the expert in this topic. You set the tone for everything you create. That's true for any sort of project or business or really endeavor. Yes?
Yeah.
So what I want to know from you both is, because we are talking about goals, what win do each of you hope to be celebrating by the end of the year? So for me, it's not just about the goals, it's the celebrating the wins once you achieve them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I was saying earlier, the cycle of my business is that my work is really pretty much done by December. So December is my month to celebrate getting it all done. That means all my work really has to get done in 3 months, not 4.
Right.
And I love the fact that I can kick back and enjoy the holidays. I want to be in December celebrating that I met my financial goals, that I met my growth goals, the things that I told myself, I'm going to do this for my business and for my clients. And I'm going to get, more of my social media automated. I am going to get more outreach in my physical marketing strategy. I'm going to meet that every single month between now and then. Then it's time to kick back and celebrate a glass of wine, a good meal, going out and meeting with others. It's all real important reinforcement to say, yes, I'm on the right track and I deserve it.
Oh, we all deserve it. We definitely, we work hard. And I think especially as entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, whateverpreneurs we're calling ourselves, we need to add a girl ourselves or add a boy ourselves as much as possible, because if we're not going to ... Melanie, what are you going to celebrate at the end of the year? And I guess how will you celebrate? Because Marcia yes-anded in her response.
So I'd love to start with the celebrate part. So I have two, as Deborah would say, from being in Bryn Tillman's community, we never show up doing just one thing. We love Bryn. We always have multiple things. So my advanced trust facilitator certification project, every time I thought that it was time to submit an outline, the universe would be like, oh no, here's another great client. Here's another great situation. Here's another great spin. Oh, you know that story that you thought had an ending? So the win that I want to celebrate is starting to really recognize and letting my writing voice out with greater ease. For the mental fitness, from helping remove this for clients, for helping them put their judges on ice. When I pick up a pen, I occasionally have that sensor that pops up because they're like, oh, that's too big. You can't say this on the first date. So I would love to have the trust project in there and to have the writing. And I appreciate Jonathan Howard, a dear friend in the Story Lab is his new podcast. And I'm working on an outline of a really hard story. And Jonathan says, you got to tell the story full out. And then you have to decide what doesn't go in. And I realized the story I was talking to Jonathan about was the block in the trust certification facilitator project. So I think sometimes realizing are things, they're interconnected and we don't see that. So I think I'm ready to celebrate two wins at the same time.
Okay, so letting your voice out and getting this project out. Did I get that?
Yes, because you'll laugh. The book has a name already.
Of course. No, I won't laugh.
The book has a name already. The chapters have names.
Okay.
There's an outline for them. Deborah would say, if I'm following the Deb method, as Deborah would say, there's no accidents here. Okay.
Never. But having that foundation is so important. Whatever your goals are, knowing. And again, I like the future casting part of, okay, at the end of the year, that in time is really funny. So one exercise, a part of determining your mission is, what is your future bio? And I used to say, didn't it used to be like, where do you see yourself in 10 years and then 5 years? And now I say, in a year by your next birthday or by the end of the year, pick one of those and think about that in your future. What are you going to say about yourself in the present tense, in the third person? What will be true about you at that next checkpoint? And then when you have that, then you work toward it. Now, one thing that I do, which is a little goofy, at the beginning of the year, I don't, unless I've got a book in progress or something, because the book just came out in January, usually I will say I am doing 4 different initiatives this year, and they are TBD, because it's all in service of what I talk about, which is goals and or books, but they may show up differently. I launched 2 podcasts in the last week. One of them, I was invited to be a co-host. So Marketing Podcast Network, which hosts GoalChat, is a network of about 80 different marketing related shows. And we've been talking lately, how do we raise our profile? And I said, well, we've got this blog we don't use. So I named myself editorial director and started, the end of the week, we do This Week on MPN, and we do podcaster profiles. And someone had this great idea. Let's do the MPN Meta Marketing Show where we talk about the episodes. So Keith Smith said, hey, Deb, want to do a podcast? So this just launched last week, our first episode. I will put in the show notes, which you can get at thedebmethod.com/blog. But it was purely by accident, because I took on this role and he took on a different role within MPN to elevate this wonderful network. And so I found myself co-hosting a podcast, which is, very Deb centric. And then the book proposal podcast I launched last week with 3 episodes, new episodes every Tuesday, because this specialty, I want to demystify how people look about writing books. Everybody's got these ideas and they think they have to write the whole book. Really, you start with a proposal and you build it from there. And I've just been talking about and writing about this for ages. And I was stunned to realize this podcast didn't exist. So I started it. Were either of these on my radar at the beginning of the year? No. Were they at my radar at the beginning of August? No. But sometimes in pursuing your goals, you take opportunities, not the small shiny objects, but the large ones that make sense to put into your day, your schedule, the content you put out in the world. That was a very long tangent. So I would love for you both to gift a goal. What is something that you've done that works really well for you that others can try, can take for a spin to see if it helps them in their pursuit of their business and or personal goals? So, Marcia, what goal are you gifting?
Well, the goal I'm gifting is the one that's worked for me recently, which is don't prejudge it. Don't editorialize while you're trying to brainstorm your goals. Just start writing them. Just, it may not even feel like it's a goal. It takes a little time to get in the flow. So my gift to you is don't think about it. Just start whatever thing it is. Walk around the block. Talk out loud in your office while you're pacing back and forth, and it will get to you.
Awesome. Okay, Melanie, what goal are you gifting?
I'd love to gift a goal that has 2 sides to it. One side is alignment, and the other side is realignment. When we flip a coin and think about it, the minute you plan something, there's at least 2 sides of it. Somewhere as entrepreneurs, as team leaders, as committee members, as family members, you're going to find there's more than 2 sides. And that is my invitation. When Marcia says just start, continue to look at the other sides of those coins, because there's gold in there.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about your process of aligning and realigning yourself? Because, and that's one of the secrets of 52 Secrets, by the way, as well.
Energy is the key. Energy is
Okay.
the key. So I always look at energy. So I look at, instead of looking at ROI, I look at return on energies and engagement.
Love that.
And I will get to Sydney, Australia one day, because another thing I believe in is ROO, R-O-O, which is return on objectives and opportunities. And so the energies really become the key, just like trust is a master key. If I was to think of putting elements to trust, elements to fuel the energy, to make sure we don't burn out, we don't run out of energy, the right team members around you, that you have the right ingredients, you have the right mix. Just like Marcia reminds me, I haven't had a glass of wine in a week. I will fix that shortly. And we're on vacation, so I want to thank you for that. I will fix that. But we need to look at what we're surrounding ourselves with personally from a culture, business from a culture, and make sure they're in the perfect container. And that container, think of it like a colander. It needs to have holes in it so stuff flows. And it's easy to get rid of the small sandy pebbles. And I think that's the part of alignment. It can feel like a really good recipe or something nutritional, if we think of it like neutralizer for fertilizer for a soil, or to make the perfect grape, that's somewhere in there. Just keep looking at it. Doesn't mean you have to change your mind, but just keep looking at it because there's richness in each side.
I particularly love the fact that the containers have holes, because not everything in your life needs to be there. It's not enriching who you are. And as you look around and make sure you are in alignment or realignment with who you are. So we will make that the goal, and then make sure that the goals reflect that. This monster list. And I'm just going to add just the very Deb part of it is, whatever your goals are, remember that they are yours, and they could be whatever you want them to be. You are the judge of your goals. You get to decide what you want to bring into to enrich your life, because the more you're enthusiastic about it, guess what? The better you're going to be at whatever it is that you're doing. This has been such a fun tangent build, slippery slope into the minds of living your best life, looking around your surroundings and doing what you need to do to make your goals a reality. So I thank you both so much for that. Marcia, Melanie, where can people learn more about you? Marcia?
Well, obviously, LinkedIn is one place that I can be found. My website is Cornucopia Creations, Cornucopia Creations. There you go, right there on the slide. So there's a nice little about page there, and people can find out what they want to know from that.
Excellent. And Melanie, where can people learn more about you?
Thank you, Deborah, for putting the website. That's the new, it's not a stepchild, I promise. It really will emerge. But the easiest place right now to find us is on LinkedIn. And if you also are on YouTube, and depending on how you consume your content, you'll find there are now a lot more than the 40 hidden videos that were there 3.5 years ago. And I'd encourage you, just reach out. Let's have a conversation, whether it's about exploring trust or diving in deeper on some of the gems. Marcia and Debra, thank you for a pleasure. I'm a virtual toast girl, so thank you.
Oh, virtual toast friends.
Yeah. Thank you for the chance
Amazing.
to join you.
I'm always learning things from your guests and from you, Deborah. So it's always a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's fun for me as well. And if you go to thedebmethod.com/blog, I will have the links to to all of our LinkedIns, but also to Marcia and Melanie's website, so you can learn more. And if you need a little bit of extra help towards your goals, you can grab a copy of 52 Secrets or your Goal Guide, your favorite place to buy books. And I am live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And you can subscribe to GoalChat and Taste Buds with Deb and the Book Proposal Podcast on your favorite places to get informed and inspired. Your favorite podcast app. That's what I meant to say. Marcia, Melanie, what final thoughts would you like to leave us with today? Melanie, let's start with you.
I think my final thought is I'm noticing that Jay Trivedi popped in to join us on LinkedIn is, may the force always be with you. I'm a Star Wars girl, and it's a real reminder, and I thank Jay for reminding me of that. We really need help simplifying what we do so others hear it, see it, and can decide whether it's for them or not. And that would be what I would really say is find lovely, kind, amazing, talented humans to help you create a less fragile world, and one where others can see your genius and your beauty.
We are all in this together, so why not be all in this together? Love that. Marcia, final thought to you.
Well, I'm going to build on Melanie's theme here, which she borrowed from Jay, which is, if this is going to be a Star Wars theme, these are the goals you're looking for. Everybody get it? Not these aren't, but these are the goals you're looking for.
I
Hold
will.
them here. GoalChat Live. Dig in.
Wherever, what I say is, however you found us, we're glad you're here. And there was something about this topic today that drew you in. So we appreciate you spending time with us today. We appreciate you choosing yourself and your goals, because if you're here, that means you are ready to, fly into fall with determination and zest and joy. So go set some goals and do what you need to make it happen. Go for it, because we know you can do it. Thanks, everyone.